I think junk food is addictive.
I think that's a really bold claim, and you shouldn't make really bold claims like that because that can be interpreted so wrongly by people.
I claim it just because of the more I eat, I just want to get more and more. Think like once you get one of those junk food from the supermarket, you open that door and the next day you hear some whispers like those products literally talk with me and just trying to convince me like buy me again, taste me again.
Reinforcing, just like a drug.
If I just don't buy for 2-3 days, I realize that whispers are gone, and I also don't remember the taste, and I don't crave the junk food. The problem is when I taste it, immediately I crave it more. If I can forget, then I never crave. That's why I claim that it's addictive.
Okay,
what do you think about that?
I feel like that too. Like I always say, I had a bunch of ice cream yesterday, so now my standards are higher and my taste buds don't really want healthy food. I feel like I just want ice cream. I always say that. So it's kind of like a vicious cycle. Once you start eating it, it's very reinforcing. Like it makes you want to keep doing it and it's hard to stop, which is very drug-like. The reason I don't like people saying junk food is addictive is because I think the definition of addiction is a lot more specific than like what you feel like. And even if you feel like that, that's only one person's experience. So it's really hard to say, this is what I'm experiencing, so we should make a broad claim that junk food is addictive. First of all, because it's a little bit too broad.
May I ask what is the definition of addictive? What do you say addictive? What is addictive?
Okay, this is a good question because we were debating about this earlier and I was saying this is the definition of addiction from the DSM-5.
What is DSM-5?
Oh, so they are the officially recognized gold standard manual of mental health diagnoses. So it's by the American Psychiatric Association and it's used for like legal purposes or drug reimbursement purposes. Food addiction or sugar addiction isn't in that manual. Technically, a lot of people will say that it can't be an addiction. It has 11 criteria.
What are these criteria? What makes something addictive? For example, when I fell in love with someone, I also become addicted to that person. I want to see that person over and over again. So I crave that person.
Yeah, okay.
I crave junk food. Like when I used to smoke cigarettes, I was craving cigarettes. So alcohol, same. In my world, if a product makes you crave something, I just label like, that there is an addiction here. That would be addictive.
It is, definitely. It has some addictive qualities. And that's a really good point because cravings are one of the 11 criteria. So I think it's a really obvious factor of addiction, but it's only one factor. So it's just one out of the 11 criteria, and you have to meet 6 of them to actually have an addiction diagnosis.
So you need to have the majority among these 11 criteria. If you have 6 of them, you can say addictive.
Yes.
If you have 5 of them, no.
Yes. Exactly. So like cravings are a huge one that's like definitely like empirically, like in the research, it's proven that food can absolutely cause cravings. Another big one is it causes a lot of unsuccessful attempts to quit. So like you really, really want to quit and you try to quit or you try to reduce your consumption, but you can't. And that's like, I think that's pretty relatable to junk food. But there's a bunch of them that junk food, either it just doesn't meet or there isn't enough like real strong evidence that it meets these criteria, like not fulfilling your obligations. It's hard to say that junk food causes that. A few more are like, we can't prove it causes social issues or issues in your relationships. So that's just what like the DSM-5 says for now. That was my original idea and I thought like food is not addictive, sugar is not addictive. But when I did more like a better, less biased look into the research on food addiction, there's actually like a really big lack of agreement between articles and between like good official citations and between psychiatrists.
Yeah, I think if you ask the society what is addiction, I just claim that the majority of the people will think like me and label things just like I do.
That's true. That's true. And that's another thing I think that's
But that doesn't mean that my definition is correct. I just say that I have the majority.
That's what most people would agree with.
that works great in democracy, but that doesn't mean that
the dictatorship.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to hear why I want to label as addictive?
Sure.
If we can label these things as addictive, at least we can put them in the same category with cigarettes and alcohol, and then we can limit the companies all around the world and we can just impose them certain design standards. Right now, when you go to the supermarket, all those colorful junk food, nice packaging, all those happy faces, they're just grabbing your attention. Your eyes are immediately goes there.
They do.
And for example, if you're a dad or mother, it's so hard to protect your child from those junk food because immediately those products target right the child. And you know, when child wants something, as a father or mother, you want to buy it, but I'm pretty sure also they don't want to buy that frequently.
So right now it's the opposite of like protecting people from junk food or showing them it could be dangerous. It's like actually putting it right where you're going to see it and right where your kids are going to pressure you to buy it.
Yeah,
so
let me finish, then I will give it to you. If we can put it in the same category with cigarettes and alcohol, we can tell them like your packaging must be black and gray, and also you need to put a warning on the product. At least we can make them less appealing in the supermarkets, and that would work better for the whole humankind. Right now the obesity is such a big case, especially in the United States.
Yeah.
That's my solution to that problem. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that's a good solution. I think that's fair. I think it's fair.
Okay.
So I think it sounds very extreme. Okay, the first time you hear it, you're saying we should have warnings. We should treat it like a cigarette. Like it sounds extreme. So that sounds like, I don't know, it sounds a little dramatic. But actually, if you think about it, like cigarettes cause a lot of long-term health complications, and like junk food indirectly does cause a lot of long-term health complications. Like you were saying, obesity is so common. I think like more than half of the world now is overweight. Mm-hmm. So like that's a huge health concern. So even though it's like junk food seems really harmless and it seems like it shouldn't really quite have the same precautions as drugs or cigarettes, like I think it kind of should. Mm-hmm. I think less so that it'll like entice people less, because like if I want chocolate, I'm still gonna, I don't care about the package. I know what it tastes like.
Sure.
I'm gonna get it in a black package. But I think people should be aware that like this is actually a very powerful thing, and this is a thing I should use some caution with, and this is something I should be careful with, and maybe I can't just buy a whole pack and eat one chocolate bar. Mm-hmm, so I think having some like awareness that it's like actually a really hard thing to resist is a really good idea.
I tried to introduce this idea years ago. I was in university. It was a contest about junk food. Actually, the purpose of the contest is to generate some ideas, products, services to make life easier for diabetes, people who have diabetes. That was my idea, for example. But when I start my presentation and when I say that junk food is addictive and we just allow these companies, these people to sell these addictive products to us and to our children, the whole jury just go nuts and they literally roast me. While I'm presenting my ideas, they just stop me and they say like, you need to change your words, you can say that. Like they literally about to stop me, cut my presentation. I still claim the same thing, I still have the same idea.
Wait, can I ask, what was their criticism?
I didn't get any detailed answer because they were so angry and they were so offended. I think they're all fathers and mothers, and when I say that word, I think they got really offended, because if they accept that, that means they're gonna accept that they are buying those addictive products to their children and they are consuming that products, so they are also addicted and their children is addicted. So
that's hard to face.
I think they feel so offended. That's why only thing that I heard was just some angry answers, and there was no any arguments. Like we didn't discuss it. I just like, oh, okay, sorry to say that,
and all of that. Yeah. And I think I had a similar reaction to that. you were saying, because it's like a personal attack, which I think is a good point. It's like you see that in like meat and vegan debate. I think everyone's has so much bias and so much emotion that's like no one's really being rational or giving you real reasons. They're all just so stuck to their point and will get so offended if you say whatever, if you say what they don't want to hear, which is like attacking them.
I do understand that reaction, by the way. Like nobody wants to be addict, you know, like nobody wants to accept that. But beliefs are very important in life. What you believe is very important. If I can change what you believe, then I can change all of your actions. The definition in the society is like, oh, they're just normal products. They just stay there on the market. So you just keep consuming. But for example, cigarettes has more bad reputation. That's why people consume it carefully. And also some people specifically try to stay away from cigarettes. So if I can change the belief in society's mind, if I just convince people that it's addictive, I think the whole behavior will change and people will start changing their actions automatically, and they're gonna put some distance between junk food and themselves.
I feel like even though I sometimes talk about it, and like I'm definitely aware that like it's very powerful and it can like have a lot of addictive qualities, but sometimes I do forget that, or if I'm with other people, it's like it's really normalized and they'll be like, oh, just have one cookie, it's not gonna harm you. And like one cookie isn't gonna harm you, but over time, like a lot of cookies, you know, can lead to a lot of chronic health effects.
I love those cookies right away.
I think another reason for my big reaction was that's something I actually hear all the time, and it kind of sounds like a very stereotypical myth, like saying like gluten makes you fat, like don't eat any salt, sugar is addictive. So I'm like, oh my god, like don't say that, that's not true, because I was thinking like, no, we have criteria for addiction, like you can't make that statement, it's technically incorrect, I'm tired of hearing this, like that needs to stop. So that was another reason for my big emotional reaction.
When we say sugar, actually, maybe we can divide it into two parts. The sugar that we see inside junk foods, glucose, I can tell it's definitely more addictive. Inside the fruits, we have fructose, so it's just another type of sugar.
Yeah.
Do you think fruits as addictive as the junk food, or do you think fruits are like easy to resist? I know some fruit people, they just eat 5 fruits every day and they complain about not losing weight. And I several times I tell them, what you are doing is not different than eating a chocolate. It's actually more dangerous because in your mind, you're just eating organic and being healthy, eating fruits, but you're getting 1,000 calories. 5 fruits, you're getting even more than 1,000 calories, depends on what you eat. But you know, if you eat 4 dragon fruits, I think it's 1,000.
So you think it could be from the fructose that's causing that?
Yeah, I think if you eat 1 or 2 fruits, because of the fiber inside, you feel full. So you say, okay, that's enough for me, I don't want to eat anymore. But in chocolates,
you don't.
I mean, I can continue forever.
You can continue forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think actually that's a really good, I'm so glad you said that about fruit, because that's the main reason I don't like people making these claims, because it does lead to people say fruit is bad for you and you should avoid it, and it has addictive behaviors. So I think first of all, if we look at like glucose versus fructose, I know there was like a lot of old studies saying that fructose is metabolized differently. This is actually true. Fructose is metabolized differently. So it's like metabolized through your liver. So if you eat a ton of it, it can give you like fatty liver disease, and glucose doesn't do that. I think also a lot of junk food companies use high fructose corn syrup, so it gets a really bad reputation because the name is high fructose corn syrup, and that's the ingredient that's in pop and junk food and stuff. So it seems like fructose is really bad. But in any study that ever showed that fructose could cause issues to your liver, like those studies were done on animals, and they were giving tons and tons and tons of just pure fructose, and that's what showed negative health effects. Whereas like in the real world, we don't have any food that exists with that amount of fructose. So it's like that's not a realistic thing that's going to happen. And when you do these studies now in humans and you compare people eating like a reasonably high that you would find in the real world amount of fructose and keeping everything else the same in their diet versus people who eat like a reasonably high amount of glucose, you know, same amount of glucose, same amount of fructose, everything else is the same, that you see the same negative health outcomes and you see the same change in your biomarkers. So you'll see like the same increase in your blood cholesterol. You'll see the same decrease in insulin sensitivity. So like, even though theoretically, yeah, if you have really, really, really refined fructose that is like you get in the lab, that can cause issues. That doesn't happen in the real world. So like really, glucose and fructose, like they have the same health outcomes. In reality. The other thing we should say about high fructose corn syrup is it's really just like a concoction made of like 40% fructose and 60% glucose,
That's what
I
I
believe.
know too, yeah.
Yeah, and then if you look at honey, it could be anywhere from 21 to 43% fructose. So
what are you trying to prove by saying that?
I'm saying that honey could also be 43% fructose.
Okay.
Which is not any better than high fructose corn syrup, which is like 40% fructose, 60% glucose.
Yeah,
so it's all just glucose fructose syrups in like different forms. And Yeah, so high fructose corn syrup sounds worse than it is, but it's actually like basically half glucose, and honey is the same chemical composition. It's also half glucose. And even if it's like from a natural source and looks nice and has like, I don't know, it has a nice positive association with it, like the molecules affect your body the same.
Okay, I like this conversation, but there is a very important question that I need to ask to you, and also I think the viewers will like to hear that, I guess. I know you're a very good dietitian. There are lots of people out there watching this video right now, and they have a habit of eating junk food, and maybe they are curious about how they can remove that behavior and they can start their journey to lose weight. What do you recommend them?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. Probably the ideal answer is something that's beyond my scope and more like psychology, psychiatry, not dietetics. And I'm sure like if you fix the underlying issues and the underlying like desire to overconsume these things, or what your emotional issues are and what makes you want to eat these things, that's probably the better solution. And I know even a lot of dietitians will say that you shouldn't have to completely limit junk food. You should be able, if you're like mentally healthy, you should be able to have junk food in moderation. I say in practice, in real life, with clients who are really trying to lose weight and struggling, or especially for clients who have like a very ambitious fat loss goal, I think in my experience, the only thing that works very well consistently is saying not to have any of the thing that they're like losing control over in the house. So that would be very drug-like. Like if you're an alcoholic, just don't have alcohol in the house and don't even start. So I say like the thing that works the best is just not having any access to it. That's like just my personal opinion though, not my dietitian opinion.
What do you think about junk food tax?
Junk food tax.
That's the last question. I told you like maybe we should put some pressure on those companies and limit their design, force them to use certain colors and certain fonts and certain warnings on their products. Or we can let them do whatever they want and we can put some junk food tax on it. So only rich people can eat chocolate and stuff like that.
How much would the tax
And rich
be?
people are not too many, so obesity problem will be solved like that. Or maybe people will start making their own chocolate at home. So
well, how much would the tax be?
At least it should be 200%.
Oh,
like
okay.
if chocolate bar is $5, it should be like.
So you're not doing a little like 7% HST
Oh no,
type
no!
thing.
Like I think the tax should be really intimidating, and when people see the product, they should like, instead of buying this, I would rather to go and buy some fruit and get my sugar from fruits. So we're trying to make people say that. So that's why tax should be very intimidating.
Right. So only if you really, really need this chocolate bar, you'll get it. I thought you were thinking of like
Or
a 7%.
you can make your own chocolate bar at home.
Or you can make your own. That's hard. I don't know. I think I like first of all, I think if it's that much, then that's a good idea. I think a lot of things. I first of all think I don't know if it would really stop people. I feel like in the past when people make rules to like hopefully make people make healthier choices and lower obesity rates, like nothing really seems to work. I feel like people want to eat unhealthy stuff. However, I think it would make them think if there's like, oh, there's a big tax on this, even if you're rich. I don't think that the main point would be like, I don't want to spend this money, so I guess I just won't eat junk food and I've forgotten about it. I think it would more just make you stop and think like, I'm actually doing something that could be not ideal for my health. And just, you should respect it. It makes you respect it. I also wonder if there was a big tax, I feel like people would just start rebelling. It would make me want to eat it more. I would want to eat it because I'm told not to eat it.
My main concern is, I think that's gonna cause a black market, like
chocolate dealers.
Yeah, exactly. There will be some chocolate dealers and they're gonna visit your home and they're gonna sell you some chocolate at a discounted price.
Yeah, I feel like in practice it wouldn't work. I feel like in theory it sounds good.